Paul Theron from Verstack joins me. Welcome, Paul.
Hello.
62% increase in profit, slightly below what people had expected, but very good number.
That's a damn outrage. I'm so offended by what has happened with BHP Billiton.
Why are you offended?
Well, let's go back a story here or two. In 2008, this is a company that delivered roughly 20 rands per share of earnings, okay? But of course, 2008 was when the oil price was sky high, the world looked very different. It was before the financial crisis and the loss of confidence in the developed economies and so on and so forth. But Billiton at that point traded on a 15 PE. So that's when we had the share price well north of 300 Rand a share.
Yes.
Middle of 2008. Now, you know, we wind forward to now. Okay, admittedly, there was a bit of bumpy ground in between.
Yes.
I'll give you that. But now we have the company making 30 Rands a share.
Yes, and trading at 223.
Like 50% higher, but we're on a 9 PE. We're on like an 8, 9 PE. So what is interesting for me is, you know, in the long run, they say that, you know, company share prices follow earnings. And that's true because
it's not reflected in the numbers you've just given me. I've
well,
just jotted them down. It's trading at 228 Rand a share.
So that's pathetic. I mean, that means in effect that where people were prepared to pay 15 times earnings in the old days because of this enthusiasm about the future and the future profit trajectories, now they're only prepared to. So what does that tell you? That tells you that the world currently, the world in which we live today is one in which, you know, we don't believe that China and India's industrialization are proceeding apace. We are happy with 2% yields on US treasuries. There's like, you know, all the long-term investors, the optimists have gone into hiding.
Maybe because the world's biggest economy is still facing a lot of
precisely.
troubles, Paul. And let me tell you, where do you think the next bubble will be in the US? Could you give me an indication of what your thoughts are?
Bubble in the US.
And it's got to do with debt. And not the traditional debt that you think of.
I'm not even like in a position to
What about
comment
student
on that kind of
loans?
question.
Student loans. Do you know that student loans have increased by around 551%? It's the biggest number we've seen since 1999.
But I read somewhere that what happens when you have a recession and when joblessness rises is in America everybody goes back to college because you can't get a job or you can't get a better job, so you go and do a master's.
Do you know what interest rate they're sitting at?
Well, I know that a lot of the loans in the US for students are subsidized. So in other words, you get like a federal loan program. But I don't know, what is the number?
Okay, well, we're looking at something between 3 and around 16%.
That's
3 and 16.
3 and 16.
3 and 16.
Well,
that is the spread. And let me tell you, a lot of these companies are actually convincing students to go for a fixed rate sitting at 16% because of fears of a possible interest rate hike. Isn't that interesting?
But I love that sector. I mean, I think a great growth theme for the future would in fact be the you know, online education and generally education sector. I know in this country we've got like a couple of small players like Advitech and Curro, but long term I think, you know, the future of education is online.
So you think it's a positive that we've seen a massive increase in student loans?
Of course, you know, there are going to be all these clever people to stock up. And you know, I'm a strong believer in elitism. In other words, the cleverer you are, the better educated you are, the better looking you are, the better the future for you and your country.
What happened to you then, Paul? I'm kidding. Thank you so much for joining us. Much appreciated.